Good afternoon and welcome to the Daily News Analysis by Civil Service Institute Pala. Let's look at the top stories of the day. PM says will emphasize priorities of the Global South at the G7 summit. So, here G7 grouping becomes important for us both from the prelims and mains perspective. So, we will be also looking at the G7 grouping. Center's wide outreach aims to push flagship tribal welfare schemes in over 500 districts. Iran-Israel conflict, center to focus on Aravalli Western Ghats restoration. Warmer nights, more humidity, while 57% of districts face extreme heat risk. Pakistan continues to strengthen anti-money laundering system, says FATF. Actually, in yesterday's daily news analysis, we have discussed this topic, especially FATF, what FATF is, and the two prominent lists produced by this institution. So those who haven't seen the video, please go and check yesterday's daily news analysis. And in today's article, Pakistan continues to strengthen anti-money laundering system was mentioned. And for the first time ever, FATF has actually said and reported state-sponsored terrorism in its reports. So Pakistan may face review of legal conviction process linked to terror probes, and greater scrutiny of the country's finances may happen within a month. In yesterday's DNA, we have also discussed in detail about why Strait of Hormuz is critical for India's oil and gas imports. And in today's newspaper also, the same article was repeated, why Strait of Hormuz is critical for India and the rest of the world. So please note and please mark Strait of Hormuz in your atlas. Try to locate Strait of Hormuz and the neighboring countries and why it is an important shock point. Places recurring and repeating in the newspaper is important for you, especially in prelims. So please do take a note of Strait of Hormuz. India increased its nuclear warhead count to 180 in 2024, says 𝗖𝗶𝗃. Places in news, Venezuela's El Dorado. So let's go to news in detail. In the first article, Prime Minister is on a 4-day, 3-nation tour to Cyprus, Canada, and Croatia. India will highlight the priorities of the Global South at the G7 summit in Canada. India has been regularly invited to the outreach session of the G7 summit in the past few years. This will be India's 12th participation. The Global South includes the developing and the less developed countries of the world. And in the recent G7 summit, Trump, the American president, before his early departure, supported the idea that he would rather expand G7 into a possible G9 by including Russia and China. So G7 becomes important for us. So let us look into what G7 is. G7 is an informal grouping of the world's most advanced economies like France, US, UK, Germany, Italy, Japan, Canada, and the European Union. European Union is a non-enumerated member in this grouping. Its members meet annually at the G7 summit to discuss global economic and geopolitical issues. On January 1 this year, Canada assumed the presidency of the G7 for the 7th time. This year marks the 50th anniversary of the G7 summit. Moving on to the next news. Center's outreach program aims to push flagship tribal welfare schemes in over 500 districts. The Ministry of Tribal Affairs has rolled out a large-scale outreach campaign for implementation of the welfare schemes in over 500 districts of the country. And the two key flagship schemes are PM Janman and Janjati Adivasi Nyay Maha Abhiyan, which was launched in 2023. Sorry, PM Janman, that is Pradhan Mantri Janjati Adivasi Nyay Maha Abhiyan, which was launched in 2023, and 𝗗𝗏𝗄𝗏 Janjatiya Gram Utkarsh Abhiyan, which was launched in 2024. So, 𝗗𝗏𝗄𝗏 scheme is named after tribal leader Birsa Munda. This umbrella scheme includes construction of hostels, rural electrification, building of homes under PM Awas Yojana, and support for fisheries and livestock. The outreach is part of the center's ongoing year-long celebration of the Janjatiya Gaurav Varsh. The center began the celebration on 15th November 2024, the birth anniversary of Birsa Munda. Year-long celebrations are a tribute to the contributions of the tribal leader and the tribal community to the freedom struggle. So, in this outreach program, the important focal points are providing basic documentation in the form of Aadhaar cards and Ayushman Bharat cards, and also granting of titles under the Forest Rights Act, opening of pension as well as Jan Dhan accounts, ensuring last mile awareness. Moving on to the next news, Israel-Iran conflict. Israel's intention is to neutralize Tehran's ability to develop a nuclear bomb. It is also becoming apparently clear that Israel's objective is regime change. In the name of self-defense, Israel is becoming a rock state, difficult to contain due to the support of its Western allies. What unfolds next will largely depend on how the US reacts to the crisis. Indians with own vehicles, that is, those who have their own vehicles, have been advised to move out of Iran's capital. Ministry of External Affairs says it will issue further advisories depending on fluid situation. India's stock markets have remained calm, even though the unpredictability and uncertainty is looming. The reasons are low inflation, a stable macroeconomy, and limited trade linkages with Iran. Things could take a bad turn if Israel targets Iran's oil installations. Time and again, regime change orchestrated or forced upon countries by foreign powers has led to disastrous consequences like political instability, protracted violence, and the collapse of state institutions. From Iraq under Saddam Hussein to Libya under Muammar Gaddafi, the eventual return of Taliban in Afghanistan, recent history is replete with cautionary tales. So there are serious questions about the legitimacy of Iranian theocratic regime. The 2022 protest following the death of Mahsa Amini were a clear signal of its growing unpopularity. So let's wait and watch about the crisis that is unfolding in Middle East. In the next news, center to focus on the restoration of Aravalli, Western Ghats. Along with that, mangroves and Indian Himalayan region will also be restored as per the revised Green Mission document. This has been released by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Micro ecosystem approach will be adopted, and India could achieve a carbon sink of 3.39 billion tons from the combination of restoration activities like restoration of open forest, tree plantation on wastelands, plantation along railway lines and highways. The National Mission for Green India was launched in 2014, and it is one of the 8 core missions under the India's National Action Plan on Climate Change. As part of its commitments under the nationally determined contributions, carbon sinks through additional forest and tree cover are planned through these restoration activities. Actually, this restoration activities and micro ecosystem approach to make interventions in the vulnerable landscapes like Aravallis, Western Ghats, etc. will be helpful in India's combating of desertification. The National Mission for Green India was launched, as I earlier said, in 2014, and it is one of the core component of National Action Plan on Climate Change. And its main objective is to protect, restore, and enhance India's forest and tree cover using a blend of climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. One of the core objectives of the mission is to increase forest and tree cover, especially in the non-forest land, and improve the quality of forest cover. Now, Western Ghats is a vulnerable area in the Indian subcontinent. The document said Western Ghats will be restored through regionally conducive best practices for holistic landscape management, including planting of native tree species with high carbon sequestration potential. There would be also soil and moisture conservation activities to achieve land degradation neutrality. The Western Ghats ecosystem, the document said, has degraded due to extensive deforestation, felling of trees, and illegal mining for minerals. And this has caused extensive pollution, worsening of air and water quality, depletion of groundwater, and increased human-wildlife conflict. In the next news, this is from the Indian Express Explained session. Warmer nights, more humidity, why 57% of districts face extreme heat risk. Around 57% of Indian districts, where 76% of the population live, stare at severe heat risk. Heat risk is the probability of experiencing heat-related illnesses or death due to the exposure to extreme temperatures. It depends on three crucial factors: the intensity of the heat, the degree of exposure, and the underlying vulnerabilities of affected communities. The states that are most likely to be affected by heat risk are Maharashtra, Goa, Gujarat, Kerala, Rajasthan, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, and Uttar Pradesh. All these states falls in this category. Heat risk is different from heat waves and heat stress. Heat waves are essentially prolonged periods of abnormally high temperatures in a specific region. Heat stress occurs when the body's internal temperature rises due to inability in effectively dissipating heat, leading to cramps, exhaustion, discomfort, and to a certain extent, heat strokes. Now, what drives heat risk in India? First point is warm nights are becoming more common. Higher night temperature make it difficult for the body to cool down after intense daytime heat, and this can increase non-communicable diseases like diabetes and hypertension. Northern India is more humid, particularly the Indo-Gangetic plains, and urbanization and high population density is also adding and is also worsening the current scenario. India is already witnessing adverse effects of global warming, and this study is a testament to that. Next news is a report published by a global think tank called Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. The report says India increased its nuclear warhead count to 180 in 2024. So nearly all the 9 nuclear countries, including Pakistan, continued intensive nuclear modernization programs, upgrading existing weapons and adding newer versions. The report also mentions India's new canisterized missiles, which can be transported with mated warheads. The report cautions that if no new agreement is reached to cap the stockpiles, the number of warheads deployed on strategic missiles might increase after the expiry of bilateral 2010 treaty on measures for the future reduction and limitation of strategic offensive arms called New START, which will end in February 2026. Thus, India's warhead count has increased to 180 from 172 last year. And the last news, we'll be looking at Venezuela and Venezuela's two important places that was mentioned in news, El Dorado and Escobar. El Dorado is the famed Venezuelan gold mine named after the mythical city of gold, and Escobar is the oil-rich region disputed between Venezuela and Guyana. Guyana is a neighboring country of Venezuela, located near the Guyanan border. Escobar is an oil-rich region which is located near the Guyana border, and Guyana has administered Escobar for decades. But recently, a dispute has arisen between both the countries. As you all know, Venezuela is an oil-rich country and is a major exporter of oil. And Venezuelan economy is highly dependent on oil export. With this, we are winding up the session. Thank you. Have a nice day.